Well, the major highlight of the 2023 federal budget seems to be fuel subsidy, with the federal government saying that it will stop the payment of fuel subsidy by the end of June 2023. According to Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning Zainab Ahmed, during the public presentation of the budget earlier today in Abuja, in the 2023 fiscal period, the government has made provisions of 3.36 trillion naira for fuel subsidy payment to cover the first 6 months of this year, in line with the 18th month extension announced in early 2022. The minister also noted that the nation's revenue performance as of November 2022 stood at 6.5 trillion naira, representing an 87% of the set target of 7.8 trillion naira for this year. Now, Gbolahan Olojede is a financial analyst, and he is here to throw more light on some of the key features of the 2023 budget. It's good to have you with us, Gbolahan. So, fuel subsidy takes center stage here. How feasible is its abolition in June 2023 with a new government? It's more about rhetorics over time. When it comes to actual fuel subsidy removal, you think?
I don't think the first subsidy will be something that the new government cannot deal with. It's a very tough one. I mean, we've been on fuel subsidy matters from the military to Obasanjo to Yaradua to GJ to Buhari, and nobody has been able to handle this one. But the matter has now dragged us to the point where we have no option. You can see the amount we're spending on subsidy. The provision is about 3.6 trillion just for half year. So if we're taking the full year next year, we are looking at maybe like 6-point-something trillion in payment on subsidy. So we even have no option to confront the issue of fuel subsidy. However, I think that what we need to be able to do is to look at the pinch, which is removing the fuel subsidy, and the balm and cushion that we can put in place to help the public and the citizens to be able to carry the burden of removal of fuel subsidy. We also need to be able to talk about fuel subsidy. How do you remove it? Is it going to be once is it going to be a bullet removal? Is it going to be done in phases? However you want to do it, you need to be able to articulate that and communicate it to the people and build trust for the necessary support to remove fuel subsidy. Without the trust and the support, it will be a very tough thing to do.
Well, can we talk about financing the 2023 budget? The Minister of Finance last year revealed that about 19 MDAs are owing the federal government 5.2 trillion naira in debts. So what's the assurance that the MDAs and government-owned enterprises will be able to achieve their revenue targets for the budget?
Okay, we've been on this issue of revenue from the government enterprises and even some MDAs that are revenue generators. For a number of years now. I don't know how far this government has gone in being able to enforce performance on the part of these MDAs and government enterprises towards revenue. What is, however, sure is that the revenue base of the country is very weak. In fact, it is extremely poor, in my opinion. And it is because of this revenue that we have a debt problem. When you look at the debt of Nigeria, South Africa, which is 60 million people, has about 2.5 times that debt. So, but because of the poor revenue, the debt has become unsustainable. The new government that will be coming has its job cut out for it. It must be able to fix the revenue problem. There are some low-hanging fruit that we're not even dealing with. Let me give you an example. This is a country that at one point in its life achieved approximately 2.5 million barrels of oil production. That same country slid all the way to now around 37,000 barrels. What nonsense. And we did it in a season when the entire world was making money. Oil was over $100 or hovering around $100, and we were not making money. Those are things that we must fix as part of our revenue generation. The energy crisis in the world is not about to go away. It will extend into this 2020. There's no doubt about that. How can Nigeria better its own revenue by, being able to rev up its production? Then several other areas, for example, the tax net. The tax net is weak. How many people are in the tax net? People in the formal sector, in the structured environment like you, where, they will have removed your payee, for example, that's at the state level, before they even give you the net pay. So the formal sector is carrying the burden of taxation in Nigeria. Meanwhile, this is an economy that has a huge informal sector. So the question is, how far can you stretch the burden you are putting on the formal sector? If it gets to a particular point, it will buckle. It will become counterproductive. These people will become overburdened with taxation, and it will affect investment. So what is the new government going to do about bringing more people into the tax net? It's one of the things that will help with revenue issues. We must also deal with matters of wastages and the cost of the bureaucracy. If we can handle wastages and the cost of the bureaucracy, we will go far as far as revenue is concerned.
Gbolahan, I was still going to ask you regarding the issue of recurrent expenditure, which is like 8.2 trillion naira currently and rising. And you've touched on the issue of wastages in government and the issue of oiling the government itself, as it were. So we're still largely operating a monolithic economy. How's a lack of diversified economy reflecting on budget projections and expenditure over time, you think?
Well, the non-oil revenue, incidentally, has increased over time, and that is commendable. But we need to be able to rev it up. For example, we speak about agriculture all the time, but we speak of agriculture from the perspective of primary production. No country ever gets rich via primary production. Whether you are exporting raw cocoa or corn, or you are exporting crude, you have to be able to add value. It is better for a country to be able to export refined product, petroleum product, than to be exporting crude. It is better to be able to export chocolate than to export cocoa. So we need to industrialize. And that will begin to bring in some other factors like the issue of power, what we have done about power, issue of infrastructure that are necessary to drive industrialization. But if you are really going to diversify the economic base, industrialization must be a key part of that diversification. Of course, services is huge, but we have also seen there are certain disadvantages that come with an economy that is solely built on service. The UK is a very good example, and it is suffering from the fact that it literally abandoned its manufacturing and went solely and became a financial hub, a financial capital of the world. And today that economy is struggling. That is the real sense. So we should industrialize on one side, at the same time drive the services sector to diversify the economic base. We need to run away from exporting raw materials, commodity. We must be able to add value.
Well, now, there were some key capital allocations to the Federal Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Health, Power, Education. But I'm wondering how far-reaching these allocations will be in terms of implementation so that we can have rapid improvement and concrete results in the year 2023, and we will not be talking about, the funds being diverted into private pockets.
Well, for this budget that has just been signed, my take has been that it is still work in progress. We have not seen the final document yet. And that is because this is an election year. In this first 4 months, thereabout, or five months thereabout, the focus is going to be largely on the election. So the call should be on the incoming administration, because it cannot have an excuse when it resumes in May. He has all the information he requires, apart from maybe some certain top-level security information that he may not have. But the issue of the economy, most of the information are available, and they can begin to strategize. In fact, it will not be out of place that administration begin to identify critical officials that will help to drive some of these major issues when it resumes. I do not see the current administration run this budget with any significant vigor. I think the duty will be largely for the incoming government. We are likely to see amendment, we are likely to see supplementary budget, because its priority, the priority of the new government, may be different in some areas than the priority of the outgoing government. So we have not seen the final document as it is. And the advantage of time is that that new guy can begin to work now, even before resuming.
Interesting development there, Gbolahan. But let's take a look at the final composition. Oh, yes, it's still a work in progress, as you said. But 20.51 trillion, do you think it's practical, with all the high inflations and the other economic challenges we've been facing over time? Does it cover the essence of governorship in Nigeria for the next 1 year, you think?
I've always been an advocate of big budgets. When you look at the budget of Nigeria, Nigeria is a 200 million plus people in this country. And you take the second largest economy in Africa, which is South Africa, you place it beside. How can an economy that has 60 million people be running a budget that is 3 times, 4 times the size of what Nigeria is running? But here is the problem: the revenue. Nigeria must fix that. You see, the 20.5 trillion is the largest in the history of this country. We've never had a budget that large. But how large when we translate this to per capita basis? How much is the spend per citizen in this budget? It is still low. So everything, no matter how you track it, whether you're looking at debt, everything will take you back to that revenue issue, which we must fix. It looks big, but in my opinion, we should be able to do at least 2 times of this kind of budget that we're looking at. But where is the revenue to drive it?
Well, very good question. Meanwhile, some analysts are worried that the budget will not help revitalize the economy. It will not reduce unemployment, poverty, and inflation rate, as most of it will finance debts, personal cost, and overheads. Do you agree with this, Gbolahan?
It's a point to make. It's a very good observation. The debt service has become huge. It's likely to be larger. Don't forget that what we have as the debt service for now, when you look at the ratio to the revenue, it may look so, okay, we can manage. But in the real sense, what percentage we will end up with will depend on how much of the revenue we have budgeted we're able to collect. If somebody thinks he's going to be able to collect 50 naira and he ends up collecting 30 naira, that situation that we are already condemning may even get worse, which means the proportion of the revenue that we will use to service debt will even get worse than what we are seeing right now. So the people who are the observers or analysts who are saying, oh, they don't see how this will drive the kind of growth we're looking at, they have a point. However, here is what I say. The capital budget is still fairly fat.
Hi, Geneva.
In terms of ratio, there was once a time when our capital budget is barely 30%
Thank you, Mike. We hear you well.
of the entire budget. But that has gone up a little bit, relative to the rate for it. We must sustain investment in infrastructure. I'm happy that the budget has been rolled over till 2022 is rolled over till 31st March, so that all those capital expenditure that we have not completed at the end of the year is rolled into this current year, and we can continue to spend. While at the same time, we make provision to begin to fund the capital vote for 2023. This will help the infrastructure side of things. At the same time, you see, one beautiful thing about leadership is that when that new guy comes in May, the more of the right decision, taking more steps in the right direction that he is able to do. In fact, the economy generally will not even wait to begin to see the result before it starts to react positively, just by taking the right step. So if you have a guy who is now saying, willing to share with us his agenda for dealing with fuel subsidy, and people can see, oh, if this guy is able to do this, there's another 3 trillion somewhere there that will come. And this is how that 3 trillion will be used on the other side, so that it doesn't create a situation in which people will spend more on fuel and there's no pushing anywhere. Those kind of things are what will help this budget implementation. It is not as bad as it's been presented. If we have the courage to follow through and to work very carefully on the revenue side of things, we can make a lot out of this budget. There's also the Finance Act, which I think the National Assembly has approved it. It has not been assented to by the president. This is also critical to even driving the budget in itself. So we must be able to fine-tune this. In my opinion, there are certain issues that require some fine-tuning in that Finance Act. Once we fine-tune it, let's sign it into law. Let's roll it out and be able to support the driving of the revenue for this year's budget.
Very good. Gbolahan, still talking about fine-tuning. I'm sure you're aware of the global dynamics in the oil prices as it's been sold and the uncertainty regarding global oil prices, as it were. I'd like your thoughts on that and how it might impact the projections and, of course, the implementation of this budget next year.
Well, in my opinion, it doesn't appear as if the global energy crisis is about to go away. But I foresee a situation in which sometimes in the course of the year, maybe later in the year, there might have been some, if you can, fix the problem between Russia and Ukraine, maybe the France nuclear power can co-op. There could be a way to ameliorate the crisis so that it is not as grievous as it is currently. But for the first 6 months of this year, in my opinion, that global energy crisis will remain there. And the price of crude will still remain fairly high through this period. It is for Nigeria to be able to rev up its own production and make the best of the circumstance while it's that. At the same time, it would be nice to see a situation in which the contract that have been awarded for refined products in Nigeria, those refineries get on stream. Some of those contracts must have been concluded or near completion as we speak. So that local production is revved up. That's on the public refinery side of things. On the private refinery, we have the Dangote refinery, which could also come on stream and help to manage energy prices as well as earn income. If you can imagine a Dangote refinery at full blast, we will not only be talking about Nigerian needs, but how we can earn foreign exchange by exporting refined products to other parts of the world, especially across Africa.
Financial analyst Gbolahan Olojede, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.